Welcome to Always Be Looking with me, Alan Stein, and I am very pleased to have Kara Gabay on here. So I want to introduce Kara. Kara is one of our executive coaches here at Kadima Careers. She also has her own executive coaching practice and does leadership enablement and sales coaching. Kara, you want to share with the folks a little bit more about who you are?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Great to see you, or not see you, but you can see me. Yeah, I think Alan covered it all. I am all things coaching, both at Google as well as outside of Google. And I was excited by this topic because I find that oftentimes when folks seek me out as a coach, I realize that what they're really looking for is mentorship. So I'm excited to have this conversation today, Alan.
Cool. And I see lots of hearts out there. Lots of people are digging the fact that you're back here, Kara. So really excited to have everyone. So now let's get into this. Kara, I'm going to hand this slide first off to you in terms of just share a little bit about what the differences are between a coach, a mentor, and a sponsor.
Sure. I think this slide is the simplest way to explain it. The coach is someone who's going to have a conversation with you. And what that means is a coach is not going to tell you what to do. The coach believes that you have the answers inside of you. And through conversations, questions, active listening, noticing, you, the coachee, will know what to do or what your options are and what direction to move into. A mentor, on the other hand, is probably somebody who is going to advise you, tell you what to do. They probably have experience with the problem that you're tackling or the challenge you're facing. They can share their experiences and give you advice. And finally, a sponsor is someone who talks about you. And this means somebody who is willing to go to bat for you, willing to put themselves out there, give you a recommendation, fight for you. That's typically somebody, it could be someone internal at the company you currently work for when you're working on a promotion or trying to get a job internally. This could be external, someone who is willing to put you in as a referral and really recommend you for a role. And so I think that's the simplest way to describe the difference between the three.
Awesome, Kara. And as a reminder for everybody out there, we are going to take questions and answers. So you can either put them in the chat and we will get to them at the end, or if they are relevant midway through, I might interject midway through. So do keep those questions coming, and let's get to the next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about mentor and sponsor that I've had in my past. So on the left side of the image here, I don't always wear sunglasses. Just happen to be that these two pictures, I'm wearing sunglasses. On the left side is me and my father-in-law at one of our favorite places in the world, in the beaches of Costa Rica. His name's Dick. It's an unfortunate name, but that's what his parents named him. Richard, I think he goes by Dick. He has given me so much coaching and mentorship, and I would call him more of a mentor than a coach, although it tends to blend a little bit. But he's mentored me across my career. He was very integral into me deciding to, when I left minor league baseball, working for the New York Mets and the Toronto Blue Jays, of giving up those rich rewards of $20,000 a year, pulling tarp on the field in New Haven, Connecticut. He encouraged me to go to business school, which was probably one of the best decisions I made in my life. It's not always the best decision for everybody. My case, it made lots of sense. He was a strong mentor and coach in that way, really giving me that advice and guidance. He's also given me tons of advice as an entrepreneur. He is a multi-entrepreneur, been quite successful. So he's been giving me a lot of coaching and support along the way. So that's one person who's really served as a mentor and a coach, kind of blending the line of the two. On the right side, I want to talk about someone who has been a true advocate of mine, a true sponsor of mine throughout my career. So this guy's name is Ben. This is a picture of us at Mets Fantasy Camp. We went there 2 years in a row. I think Kara knows Ben from Google days as well, perhaps. And Ben was not only the person who, I didn't know him at all before joining Google, but a friend of mine put me in touch with this guy, Ben. Ben put me in as a referral for Google. And before I ever got referred into Google, I had applied 5 times without getting any interviews. As soon as Ben advocated for me and supported me, all of a sudden the next day I got an interview. So that was the first time that he really advocated and sponsored me and supported me. He also helped me a number of times throughout my career when Kara's a little aware of this. At our times at Google, at any company, you will go through reorgs, you will move to different teams. I happened to get reorged under a really shitty leader, and it was really difficult for me for lots of reasons. Ben was really helpful in not only giving me guidance and support, but he gave me the great advice to reach out to someone who's not on the slide here, who is another sponsor and advocate of mine, to reach out to this guy, Oren, and ask Oren if he would be willing to park me on his team in a temporary capacity as I was trying to work out my career path within Google. And Ben advocated for me with Oren, and then Oren actually went out and put his neck on the line to make the case to our senior vice president to bring me over to his team. So when I think about sponsors or advocates or someone like that, it's someone that's putting their neck on the line for you, that are going out of their way, putting some social capital or political capital on the line to really help promote you and to support you. I've been fortunate enough to have those in my corner, and we'll talk a little bit throughout this presentation that there are ways that you can reach out, seek these out, and we'll talk about this throughout the talk here today also. But these mentor sponsorships, advocacies, coaches all throughout your career are crucial of getting you ahead, pulling you up when you need to be pulled out of a difficult situation, and also putting their neck on the line, which they do not need to do. So those are just a couple examples from my past. Let's go to the next slide here.
Alan, can I just comment on?
Yeah, sure, Kara.
It's just interesting. You had Ben as a sponsor to help you get the interviews at Google. I had a sponsor also help me get into Google. And I remember that time that you were just talking about. I think that's when our friendship really formed during those days. I had a sponsor bring me into Google. It's someone I worked with for 7.5 years at an ad agency. So Jen Howard and I had already worked together for years. She brought me in and I interviewed and I did not get the job. And so then Jen, my sponsor, went above and beyond and convinced the senior person on the panel to meet with me in person, thinking maybe it was a phone thing. This is before video conferencing. It was a very long time ago. But she advocated for me, pounded the table for me, got me a face-to-face meeting with the most senior person on the panel. And that's how I got it.
That is a great story. I'm also going to put in the link here for folks that want to listen. You and I were on a Steer Your Career podcast, and I remember you relating that story to me about how you did get into Google. So I shared that in the comments. If people want to hear more about that story, about how she advocated and supported you and got you in the door, was like 18 years ago now?
Coming up on 20, Alan.
20 years. 20 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. I only made it 5.5 years there.
That's okay.
Cool. So, Kara, let's hear a little bit about mentorship from you, what it means to you, how people can seek out mentorship in their careers.
Sure. So remember, a mentor is someone who is going to offer up advice and experience. They're going to talk to you, right? I think of folks coming into new organizations, new roles, new departments. Sometimes you're set up with what might be called a buddy. If you've ever been part of a buddy system, that buddy is essentially your mentor. They're going to tell you things like the culture of the team, how people communicate, what matters to different stakeholders, and really help you understand what it might take for you to be successful in your role. In the case of job searching, it could be, Alan, I think of you as a mentor to many with your LinkedIn posts. You've lived this. You've done the job searches, you've done the interviewing, you've done the networking, and you are now saying, hey, I'm going to share out my advice. So in many ways, I see you as a mentor in that capacity.
Thank you, Kara. Appreciate that. Next, go on to sponsorship, because you're really much better at defining these than me. So I'd love to hear you wax poetic on the sponsorship. Maybe if you have a story from your past on this. You already mentioned Jen Howard on this.
Yeah. So again, a sponsor is someone who's going to talk about you.
Mhm.
I have sponsored folks. In fact, just before I hopped on here, I got an email from somebody asking me if I could just send a note of recommendation. It's a person that I've worked with. I have experience with them. I know the quality of their work. And so in this case, I'm more than happy to go ahead and sponsor them. So that's an important thing. A sponsor should know your work.
Yep.
A sponsor should be familiar with your capabilities and skills, because this is a person who's going to put themselves out on the line for you. And when you think about getting a sponsor, think about somebody who really knows the quality of your work. So I mentioned Jen previously. Jen worked with me for 7.5 years. She knew that I was a hard worker, that I cared, and I just put a lot of heart into everything I did. And so that's really important when you're thinking about who might be a sponsor of yours. It's someone who just really understands the quality of your work.
And I think also going above and beyond, like in the case where you're writing this recommendation for someone, you're actually taking effort and going above and beyond for this individual.
Yeah, this is a person who's going to do a lot for you.
Let's hear you opine a little bit on coaching, something
All
that
right.
you are a professional coach
I
right
am.
now as well.
And I wanted to challenge you, Alan, on your father-in-law, because I'm willing to bet he's not necessarily coaching you. It sounds like he's an advisor. But we
Uh,
can chat. We can chat more about ways in
we,
which he coached you.
yeah, actually, let's hear your definition of coaching, and then I can reflect on that.
Yeah. So it's funny. As a coach, sometimes I'll get folks asking me, do you have experience in this subject matter? Or have you worked with other finance professionals? Right. And so most of the time I just want to say it doesn't matter. But I realize people, if they don't understand what coaching is, that answer might rub them the wrong way. So I think of another way to say it. But I don't need to know your subject matter. I don't need to know your industry or your background.
Mhm.
As a coach, I'm going to ask you what your goals are. I want to understand what brought you to coaching today? What goals are you looking to achieve? And then I'm going to ask you some additional questions. I might ask more context questions. I might ask you, what have you tried already? What are some things that you've already tried? How do they work for you? I might ask what additional options you have. Some of my clients know that I'm going to ask these questions, so then they actually just start bringing it to me before I even ask it. I'm going to ask you, what do you think you should do? And I might ask you, how does that feel for you? Does that feel authentic to who you are? As a coach, I will, and I didn't bring it. I actually have a coaching hat. It's very cheesy, but I will tell my clients sometimes, I'm going to take my coaching hat off for a moment, because I will hold back on giving advice. But if I see that a client is really craving, like, what do I do? And clients will say to me, just after I've had that chance to really ask them what they think and what other options they have. And let's role play some of those options. Maybe they're prepping for a really difficult conversation. Let's role play it, right? But at the end, I will say, all right, I'm just going to take my coaching hat off for a second. Would it be helpful if I shared how I've dealt with this situation in the past? Because I don't want to ignore the number of years of experience that I have and some of the challenges. I have seen it before. And I'll offer my own experiences only after I've given them a chance to really think through possible solutions to their challenge.
Yeah, and I think that's a good subtle difference. And thinking back on my relationship with my father-in-law, it probably is much more of as an advisor than a coach. I have had coaches before. He probably does less questioning of me for me to get to the answer, and he's just do it, just do this, go to business school.
There is also in coaching this huge thing about holding clients accountable. Some clients, they know what they need to do. They know that if they have me on Tuesday, they better take action before they get with me.
Yes, you don't want to get on Kara's bad side. I've fortunately never been there. Awesome. So now we have a Q&A coming up, and I saw a few people put some Q&A in here. We also actually have a free giveaway for those of you that are here live. We have 90 people. Scan the QR code. I think we're also putting it in the chat if we can figure this technology out, where you can get our LinkedIn optimization tips. We didn't talk so much about LinkedIn here, but everybody is joining us from LinkedIn. LinkedIn is an amazing, I'm not an investor in LinkedIn, although I probably own Microsoft in my Vanguard funds, but LinkedIn is an amazing resource to reach out to people, to seek those sponsors, those advocates, those coaches, those mentors, and so forth. On that note, actually, Kara, before we get into the questions, Have you, like with Jen, that kind of happened organically? She knew your work. Thinking about in your career throughout Google, when you found new mentors, sponsors, coaches, how did you originate those? How did you land those additional people in your corner that help propel your career?
Yeah. I think mentors might be the most common and maybe the easiest to seek out. That might just be my experience. But with mentors, it could truly be, again, internally reaching out. If I knew that I was interested in a role in another part of the org, I think about my network. I see who's currently in that org that I know, or if I don't know them, I bet you I know somebody that knows them. Alan, I think this is very similar to your advice about having informational interviews when folks are seeking jobs. It's like understanding who's in your network, who's where you want to be, and what can you learn from them. And asking them, hey, do you have 15 minutes? I'd love to hear about your experience, your journey. Tell me about you. And so I think that is an easy way to gain someone as a mentor, and that person may stay in your life. And they may not, but chances are, if you have a connection there, they may stay with you and ask you how it's going and what can they do, and they can turn into sponsors. So see where that can take you, because a mentor can easily become a sponsor.
Yes. And a question was submitted here. What are our top takeaways from today that you want to share with people to set themselves up for success? I'll start here and let you think
Sure.
about it, Kara, but
Sure.
a lot of people are willing to give a lot of help. Not everybody, but there's a lot. So if you look in the world, there's 10 or 20% of people that are willing to help support you. I don't know, maybe 30, whatever percent. There's a lot of people out there. But by reaching out, by forging those relationships in an authentic and meaningful way with mutual benefit in mind, not just where you're taking, but there are ways where you can give back as well. Like looking back at both my father in law and Ben, I have helped both of them in their careers in one way or the other in different ways. So it is a mutually beneficial relationship as well. But you do need to seek those out. And something that my father-in-law has taught me is you don't get what you don't ask for. So reach out, ask for advice, ask for support, and whether someone becomes a sponsor or a mentor or maybe coaching you, it's less relevant about that, except it's more important about having people in your corner. Advisors also we didn't cover, which Kara said maybe my father-in-law is acting more as an advisor. Wherever that support is coming from, it's been critical to my success. It's been critical to our client's success. And I know it's been critical to Kara's success. So Kara, what is your one takeaway? It was actually asked for two. So I just talked longer so I didn't have to say two. But the question was, what are your top two takeaways from today that you want to share with people to set them up for success?
Sure. I have one. So maybe yours counts as one and mine
Okay.
counts as the second one. I think across all three, across coach, mentor, sponsor, a good key for you is to know your own goals. So what do I mean by that? As a coach, my most successful coaching relationships are when clients have specific goals. They know where they want to go and we can get right into the work. Same is true of a mentor. Knowing your goals, knowing where you want to be helps them help you. And same goes for sponsorship. So really understanding what your goals are, where you want to be, what you want to do. I think that's a key to all three of those things, especially the mentor and the sponsor. Coach, for the most part, a coach, you're probably paying for that service, I would imagine, though there's a lot of opportunity for pro bono coaching. But with a sponsor or a mentor, they are most likely donating their time to you. And so don't make them do all the work, right? Know what your goals are, know what it is that you're seeking out, and have an idea of how they might be able to help you.
And while they are donating their time, they also get value out of it because I have mentored people, I've sponsored, I've coached people. I do it out of joy. The reason why I got into Kadima Careers, the reason why you got into coaching, Kara, is because you're smiling now, you're enjoying this. It's not just out of selfless interest as well, but people do giving advice. People do like supporting other individuals and makes me feel better at the end of the day. So maybe I'm just doing it for selfish reasons. Let's see. Next question that came in here. So this is a good one and especially relevant with some of the shaky economic environment we're in. Carol, I'll hand this one to you first and I'll answer second. If you don't have a job, or even if you do, but want to find a mentor in your field, are there ways to do that? How can you ask in a way that's most likely to get someone to give you some time of theirs?
Okay. I'm going to offer up my daughter as an example right now. She's only 17, but I think this could work for most people. She's just getting introduced to LinkedIn right now. She knows exactly what she wants to do. She wants to be an Imagineer at Disney World. I got Epcot right behind me, and Alan knows that we're big Disney people. My daughter wants to go to engineering school. She wants to work for Disney World. She knows where she wants to go. She follows many Imagine right now on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and she has started doing outreach. So she is sending connection requests and asking folks if they would be willing to talk to her or even allow her to shadow them. It's bold. She's only 17. She has not gotten any response yet. But Alan, I've told her about the amount of the volume game that you talk about. And so this is an approach that she's taking right now, hoping that that one person will get back to her and either chat with her or invite her to come in for the day and let her shadow.
The recommendation there is I wouldn't necessarily ask for the shadow up front. I give her kudos for asking bold, but that might be too harsh of an ask at first.
I've shared that with her. I have.
It's like asking someone to go home with you for the night rather than just asking them to go out for a coffee first. Let's not use that analogy with your daughter, but you do need to, you can't ask for people for like too much, especially if they are a total stranger. So I'm sure your daughter will learn this under your guidance and tutelage. My recommendation, in addition to what Kara said, is, and I think what your daughter's doing is amazing. She knows what she wants to do. She knows how to find those people, and she's reaching out to them. And it sounds like she's taking a portfolio approach of reaching out to lots and seeing which ones stick. I highly recommend that because you don't know who is going to respond to you. You can't tell that by their LinkedIn profile or the Instagram profile who is willing to be more generous with their time. But reach out to a lot and don't get deterred by rejection. And then when you do start having those conversations, have open-ended questions of who else can I be speaking to within the organization or within the industry. And don't, like, sometimes you don't even want to ask directly, can you be my mentor? Can you be my, and I've never asked anybody to be a sponsor. It is okay to ask someone to be a mentor usually. And often people will agree to that. When you get their approval, they may have certain time frames that they want or cadence that they want to meet with. Be appreciative of them and their time and be respectful of their limitations and constraints. So that's my tip. Next up here, I'll flip this back to you, Kara, because as a moderator, I get to do that. How can you be a good mentor or sponsor for someone else? What makes a good mentor or sponsor? So I know you are this. You gave a couple of examples before, Kara. But for those 96 people out there, and the audience is actually growing, how can we be better as mentors, sponsors, advocates, coaches?
I have mentored and sponsored many folks over the years. I think I give off an approachable vibe. And I don't know how to describe that, but I think people feel safe coming to me and confiding in me. So I give off just this. Sorry, I realize that this isn't something that I'm really giving advice on. This is just how I've been a mentor. But essentially, I'm looking around, right? I see in meetings when someone may have gotten snubbed, or I see when someone had a good idea, but they didn't get the voice in the room. And so whether I'm able to bring them into the conversation in the moment or even approach them afterwards and say, hey, it sounds like you had some good ideas there. I just keep my eyes open and look around and see where I notice folks, especially folks more junior than me, but not necessarily, where I see that they might be struggling, and I might just reach out and see how I can help. So I guess what I'm saying is opportunity is all around you. If you just pay attention to what's happening in meetings or on email threads, you can easily help folks on your team.
And I would agree that you're very approachable. I think like the first time we forged our relationship, we were both working for I know I was working for an asshole of a manager. I think you were working.
My asshole, your asshole.
Yeah. I forgot who you were working for at the time. We don't need to name names now, but like you just seemed approachable and safe to, like, when I came to you with a complaint about what my silly manager was telling me to do, I don't know, you just had an openness to you that allowed us to become friends. And we've probably mentored each one of us multiple times as we've had to navigate the shark infested waters of the corporate world sometimes. Cool. So we are at time, but we have a couple more questions. So we're going to take this until 45 minutes past the hour to honor those questions. And one thing, as a couple more questions come in, one thing, besides getting our free PDF on how to use LinkedIn, I want to also share that next week we are doing another ABL, Always Be Looking, with Margaret Boy, who is in the crowd here. I saw her comment, and we'll be talking about how to overcome common interview mistakes. So, a lot of the stuff that Kara and I were talking about today is not only to help you get up to the interview process and to really excel in your career, but Margaret and I will dig into some interview mistakes and how to overcome them. So join us next week. But with that being said, there's another question here. So, Kara, have you like talk about it's not always successful going out to reach out to someone for a mentor. Have there been times when you've sought it out and been spurned? Or does everybody say yes to you?
Maybe I'll take the flip side of that, in that I can't say yes to everyone. Quite heartbreaking when you realize maybe too many folks have heard your name or reaching out to you to be a mentor. And I've had to say no to folks just because I don't have time. And I want to say yes to everyone, but I just can't. So, Alan, you touched on something earlier about asking, is there anyone else you recommend I talk to? So for any times where maybe I've reached out to someone and they just didn't have time to meet with me, or maybe in the case of entering into a formal mentor relationship, which would take time, if that person is not able to take you on, asking, is there anyone else you recommend I talk to? Because good people know good people, which I've heard from you, Alan. And so that might be a way to approach it. And so I find myself doing that. If someone is trying to get a regular engagement with me from a mentor capacity and I know I can't take it on, I might ask them, what are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? And once I know that, I'm also a really good connector. So I can introduce them to somebody who can help them. Maybe they're sitting in the org that this person wants to get into. I can make a connection point there, and hopefully that person is able to mentor them.
And that's a huge point. So, not everybody's going to have time. And it doesn't mean that they're an a-hole or rude or whatever. But also, when you are going out there to seek help, understand what questions you have to be seeking help with. Because sometimes someone can be very helpful in just a DM or an email or some other method without, Kara's a busy woman, I'm busy, everyone's busy. So to invest 30 minutes in a chat rather than just answering something quickly over email, that's also a way that people can mentor and support and help move you ahead. So help people, help mentors, help sponsors, help coaches be more effective for you by understanding what you want to get out of them and being succinct with that ask. And regarding asks, I thought we had a bunch of questions, but I was wrong. We just had that last question. Unless anyone has one more question that goes into the 17-second delay here. I think there's a 17-second delay on the LinkedIn Live versus what Kara and I see. With assuming that we don't get any more questions, I will wrap this up now. I do want to remind folks to do pick up our free LinkedIn guide. Do follow Kara and myself on LinkedIn. And I would love to see you next week where I'll be with Margaret, who's across the pond in the UK, joining us, who is a seasoned interview coach and recruiter, where we'll be talking about how to avoid some of those mistakes. And with that, Kara, any last words that you want to share with the team not the team, with the 80 people out there? They're our team. They're a team of Acceleration Nation, but any last words you want to share before I leave my last 3 words?
Just remember, know your goals.
Know your goals. I like that. And my last 3 words before I disconnect from all you out there: own your career.
Thanks, Alan.